If you have been wondering or thinking of redesigning your brand to fit your style, then you're going to really enjoy today's guest because I've got somebody who makes branding a lot of fun. Let's get on to the show. You're listening to Be in Demand, the podcast for honest advice, inspiring stories, and ideas for growing your business by leveraging the expert that you are. I'm your host, Laurie-Ann, business mentor, and I'm also a reformed painfully shy girl, red wine lover, and exercise enthusiast. Join me as I share how being positioned as the expert in your industry, even if it's a busy one, will help you stand out and be the one in demand to hire and work with. Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're going to be talking about a topic that I have yet to cover on the Be in Demand podcast, and that is branding. And I have a special guest, and she's all about branding. Kristin, can you just give us give us the cliff notes to who you are?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. I can't believe you haven't talked about brand or branding on here. I think it's just everything. So I call myself a brand and marketing mixologist. I'm with the district brand bar. I live in Washington, D.C. That's the district part. I have helped rebrand a lot of organizations and, work in branding, marketing, communications, everything brand. That's the brand piece. And then I love for cocktails. And I think there's just a lot of lessons around mixology and marketing and branding. And so I pull that all together in my business. And I help mostly solopreneurs and small businesses craft their unique brand and create an effortless marketing strategy.
Wonderful. All right. I just we gotta dive into what you just said, the lessons from mixology into branding. What does that mean?
So I think, think about like a cocktail, right? And you have your core ingredients or you have your recipe. So one of my favorite cocktails is a Negroni, and the recipe is so simple, right? It's one part gin, one part Campari, one part sweet vermouth. But you can really have fun with it and mix it around. Is it shaken? Is it stirred? Are you switching out the Campari for some other kind of Amaro? You can switch out the gin for Mezcal. So I think it's really about just taking these lessons of you can have this formula that works for everyone, but find your unique recipe within that, and sort of make it your own, make it tailored to what your audience wants. And so I think just the way I like to have fun with it, I like to have a lot of fun with my brand. And so I'm always finding analogies and ways to sort of mix things up and shake things up to where you're finding your unique thing, but making it very simple by following a recipe, because I'm all about what is efficient, effective, and effortless.
Right. I love what you just touched on about I love to make my brand fun. And I've watched you over on Instagram, and yes, your branding does look a lot of fun. And I think I even complimented you on you're using orange, which is not a popular color. It doesn't look good on everybody. It certainly doesn't look good on me, but you use it so well. But back to the fun stuff.
Yeah.
I've never heard anybody say your branding should be fun. It's always it should represent you. It's got to be serious.
So I like to think I'm a fun person. So I don't know, but one of my life mottos is finding the joy in everything that you do. And when I started my own business and realized it's just me, I have no team to fall back on. This is going to be me living my personal and professional brand, day in and day out. I need to enjoy it. I need to have fun with it. I can't take it too seriously. So, it is a business, but it is still something that every day I have to come back to. And it has to be something that I enjoy. And that when I look at my brand and the colors, I have my brand colors, they come from my favorite cocktail, which is an Aperol Spritz. It's a little bit like a Negroni, right? It's another formula that you can play with in the same family. So I look at that and I go back to Italy and I'm yes, this is what I like.
Love this. Love this. So tip number one, have more fun with your brand.
Yes.
So what do you think is the biggest mistake that people make when it comes to branding?
Yeah, I think it's that they stop with their logo or their look and feel. So let's get into like the difference between like a brand and branding and your brand identity. And to me, your brand is everything that like someone experiences, like, of your business. So they're not experiencing the financial, the accounting, the legal, the project management stuff, right? But they are experiencing like any way that they interact with you, what their client journey is like, what is the experience from, discovering you, seeing someone post about you, referring you, seeing an Instagram post, visiting your website, what's the messaging that they get through your email, when they work with you as a one-on-one client, do they feel taken care of, afterwards. So it's truly, to me, your business's brand is every touch point that someone has with it. Branding then is sort of all of those like assets and tools that help you create and represent your like brand at large. So I think a lot of people, they're like, okay, I'm going to have this designer create a logo and give me like a style palette, and I'm going to splash the logo here. I'm going to like use the colors, but then I'm going to just sort of go off on my own, and because, maybe I'm going to throw in this other color, and then maybe I'm going to use this other font. I'm going to say this one message today, and then like tomorrow it's going to be completely different, and there's going to be no through line. So really they just like it, they stop there, but they don't understand that it's about your content pillars. It's about your messaging, your brand values, your unique position, who your audience is, your marketing strategy, which channels you are. I mean, branding to me like covers it all.
Oh my God.
I know. And so that is a lot. So we can really like, we can put the marketing stuff aside, but I do think it's part of the recipe. But, I do think one of the biggest mistakes is that it's not cohesive, because they haven't sat back or reevaluated. I think you reevaluate every year and like, define, say, okay, these are the messages. It's still relevant. This is still who I am. This still aligns with my audience. It still aligns with my services that I'm offering. Yeah.
I look back on like my beginning days,
Yeah.
which was quite, like I've been in the entrepreneurial world longer than I was in the actual working world, work as an employee. And you're right. Like it was just like, you just got a logo.
Yes.
And then tried to figure it out from there.
Yes.
And I almost feel like the branding was like, okay, like I'll do the branding when I get to that point in my business versus starting with the branding, because I hear what you're saying now because I've got all this years of experience, but hearing you talk about this brand experience and how it's like it's cohesive through everything sort of reminds me about when I work with clients, and even when I worked with executives, was what's your leadership style?
Yeah.
What's your speaking style? Like I always have I've had this belief for a long time that you need to decide what that is and not let somebody else, like the audience, or when I did leadership, it was about don't let your team decide this for you. You decide what kind of speaker you want to be.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I'm hearing from you is decide first.
Yes. I would say, you want to decide first, but also it is okay to continue to evolve. It's about small tweaks, right? Like I am regularly updating the messaging on my website or updating the photos or whatever it is. I'm tweaking my Canva templates for my Instagram, but it's small tweaks, right? I'm not going through rebrands every couple years. It's just sort of like it's evolving as I grow, but I'm still like have that through line of being cohesive to like what makes my brand unique.
Okay. And what's important about that uniqueness?
Well, it's memorable, number one. There's a lot of people that I will come across in this sort of like online business world that's like, oh, you're the cocktail girl or you're the mixologies. And like, I don't think you have to have a theme to be memorable or unique, but you do need to show your personality and stand out among the crowd, right? And I think it's just about almost not being generic or cookie cutter. And that doesn't mean that you have to have this like super exciting brand or theme or feel like your personality has to be like, rock star type. It can just, it's about leaning into what makes you you. And that's going to help you stand out.
Okay, so what makes you uniquely you?
Mm-hmm.
To give your brand a little personality, like yours is mixology. Can you give a couple of other examples of some of your clients who have kind of used something unique? Because that's really interesting. Because I think it's really interesting that you're using the mixology.
Right.
But I like how, but there's such a strategic like reason. You're just like, it's this very interesting formula. You can change different ingredients and you
Right.
still have the same drink.
Right.
I like that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Are you ready to leverage speaking as your best form of marketing? There are over 7,500 events looking for speakers every single day. Speaking positions you as the expert in the room, but you probably don't know where to start. So I created this great resource called the Directory of Places to Speak. This resource will help you get started today. So head on over to speakandstandout.com/directory to grab your free copy now. Don't miss this opportunity to be the expert speaking to audiences filled with your ideal clients.
So, and I think it's, I have one client who, she is a business consultant and sort of somewhat of a career coach. But she really takes a lot of her experience from being, raised British, but in China. And so she has this sort of like Eastern philosophy, sort of a little bit of a British mentality, like get to work. It's not this like, I know it's very different from just like a normal coach in the US, but she really leans into it and how her values are around that and the way that she approaches this like pragmatic approach to her work and to her clients. And it really, I think, like makes her stand out differently, right? She is not this um, super outgoing personality. It's not, I think you wouldn't call her bubbly or anything, right? But it's like you can see from, the work that we did together with like within her messaging and the way that we did her brand photo shoot and just everything, like how it all comes together that the way that she works with her clients is really grounded in who she is. And I think there's ways of sort of like talking about that in your brand that again doesn't have to come across in this like fun theme, but there's other people that maybe they're really more research or data focused, or they love numbers, or they love systems and routines. And so, their content and the way they talk about their work is going to be grounded in that. And that is going to set them apart from someone else in their field that, and they're going to attract that type of audience too.
Okay, you've touched on a few other things that I really want to point out for
Yes,
people who are
go for
listening.
it.
That brand is so much more than just the logo and colors. Just hearing you say like the brand photo shoot, you worked on the brand photo shoot, what she's talking about. I mean, you did very early on in the show,
Yeah.
like talk about like content pillars, but I really just want to emphasize that for people to hear that your brand is, for lack of a better word, everything.
To me, it is everything that's sort of like external, right? So again, like if you're a business, and that's what, when you have a cohesive brand, that's what honestly is what sets you apart from everyone else and sort of like raises that level because it touches on everything. So when anyone interacts with your brand, it's so clear that, oh, this is Laurie-Ann because, when I go to Instagram and then I get her emails and then I see her in person, the through line is there. Like she is being authentic to who she is. And it just adds this layer of like professionalism, I think, as well.
Yes. In the speaking world, we kind of would joke about people who haven't like updated their headshots.
Yes.
That, like I would show up, at an event, and they'd be like, "Oh, you look just like your website."
Yeah. It's like dating, right? You want to like
I'm
look like
like,
your match profile or whatever.
yes, yes. And I always found that kind of funny. It was like, yeah, I just wanted to make sure that you're like the right person, because also they're putting your headshot out there in all of their brochures about the conference. Can you imagine like a different person
Right.
getting up on stage? The audience would be like, where's the speaker?
Yeah.
Who's the sub?
Right. Or, if, and I think it's just like, it may look like you, but it has to feel like you too, right? If you're going to show up, um, I don't know, like if all of your headshots are very casual, right? But like you're coming to speak in the formal suit and like there's something that just doesn't match with your brand because like everything about your brand feels very casual, jeans, barefoot, t-shirt. And then all of a sudden here you are like straight up, black power suit. Like there's a mismatch there too,
Good point. Which like leads me into our next question, which is what are those key ingredients? I mean, if we're saying like it's everything
Yeah.
and it's so much more than just those colors and the font.
Yeah. It
Talk to
is.
us about those ingredients.
And I think it is about like coming up with what makes you you and what is most important to you. For me, I have sort of so I think the ingredients for me, it's like your brand heart. So that's your values, your unique position, understanding, how you're representing just like the business itself. What are your, I like to ask what their business pronouns are. When I started out, I felt like I needed to have like, it needed to be, we do this at the district brand bar and our values are this and whatever. And it's like, well, actually, like, it's just me, like, and when I talk, it's just me. I don't have a team behind me. I need to start representing it as like, this is just my business and you are getting me when you work with me. And there's not some like we behind me. But so your brand heart, then the visual identity. And so that is the look and feel, your logo. I'm sorry, I keep trying to mute my phone and it's not working. Your, and then the brand assets. So having templates that are similar, having, your Canva templates, your website, just like everything have that like cohesive look and feel. Then there's the brand voice. And so your brand voice, you have your tone, your personality. We both, come from a copyright mentor, Marisa Corcoran, where she talks about her word closet. I like to throw emojis into my word closet, just sort of have like the same theme that like, your phrases, your words that you typically use that should have like that through line in your messaging, your brand story. So that's sort of in like the brand voice. So those are like the three big components that like when you're talking about like crafting a brand, like that's the three areas that I look at. And then I do, again, there's the marketing, there's the client experience, there's your content strategy, but we can set that aside for the moment, even though I do think it is a big piece of just how everyone interacts with you. Yeah.
Now, is there any part of either creating a new brand or, reestablishing your brand, doing a, like maybe like some sort of a pivot that does anybody, or do you like ever bring in like, almost like that buyer psychology? Like I'm such a neuroscience nerd, like, do you ever like steer people away from, yeah, you don't really want to use that color because of, I don't know.
So, I do think, I don't know if I go into like buyer psychology. When it comes to colors, just colors specifically, I do believe like they have to represent you. You have to like those colors because you're going to use them a lot. You're going to people see maybe a tenth of your content, even like your biggest followers are only going to see a small percent of your content, but you see that every day, you're creating in it, so I'm like, go to your closet. What do you like? What colors do you draw from? But I do believe there is sort of like a Venn diagram between like your ideal audience and you and sort of like in the middle. And when you're talking about like, you need to define your leadership style for yourself and not your audience, I do believe there is a piece of that. I also think when you think about marketing and your brand, right? Because it is about the customer service experience. Like a lot of it is about your ideal audience. And this is maybe more around messaging, particularly like you need to use language that is going to draw in your ideal audience and maybe dissuade the ones that maybe are not your ideal audience. And so whether I don't know if it's really about psychology, I think it's just about learning who your ideal audience is, who you are, and then like where is that perfect like meet in the middle of the Venn diagram and like that sweet spot.
Good answer. Good answer. The only reason why I ask is because I was like genuinely curious, because when it comes to, I'm just so fascinated with how people do what they do, and
Yeah.
buying is just
No,
one of those
totally. I
things.
mean, certainly I'm going to say your buttons on your website and your emails, like they need to be bright and stand out, and I think there's some color stuff. And I've written whole blog posts for in a freelance role around color psychology. But I honestly, I think it's interesting that when I see like what people lean into, kind of like somehow just magically like work color psychology wise as well. And maybe it's, subconsciously that they're choosing those colors because they want to represent, like if they're choosing purple, it's because, it has this like sort of royalty feel, but also passionate or whatever. It is interesting. I think that people may subconsciously, or maybe they consciously choose the colors because of that, because they don't know what to pick. And so they go to a blog post like I've written and say, okay, that's what I should do. I don't know.
So, all right. So your buttons on your website should be bright.
Yes.
So we don't have to follow the rule that it has to be one of your branding colors.
Well, I think if we're talking branding colors, I think you should have like a sort of a light neutral color so that you can have that in the background of like your website and some of your things. I think you should have one or two bright colors that are your like signature colors. And then if one of those are not a bright sort of standout color, then you should have one so that everything's like cohesive. But so, I have red and orange, I have a black, I have a like tan color so that it all kind of works. And like, but you better believe like, the red is like the button, right? Like I'm drawing people to that.
Oh, I like that a lot. Okay. So one more question.
Yes.
So somebody's going to like start to like, okay, I either need to establish a brand.
Yeah.
I'm going to pivot. I'm going to redo my brand. What are like some of the questions that you have them start thinking about?
Yeah. So a lot of it is, I go through in my marketing bar membership. I have them create their own signature cocktail. And I'm like, what is the cocktail that you are making? And it's just a fun activity to like have them think through. And I have them, we actually, in the whole branding course, it is about a bar that they're creating. And so I'm like, when you walk into your business, imagine it's a bar. What's the vibe that you're giving off? Is it some like downtown lounge where people are like networking and it's like that happy hour vibe, or they're off work, but they're still like in work mode and they're just getting stuff done? Is it the place where you're going to relax and feel at home and feel like the bartender is just going to know my drink and it just feels like the safe space that I can just like unwind with a book? Is it, the tiki lounge on the beach where everyone's in vacation mode and just like happy, So I actually have them walk through all of these things to think through like, what is that experience? Because again, your brand is the experience that someone has with your business, and like, what is that? And then I think when you visualize it in a fun way, you can really get down to some of like the nitty gritty.
I really like that. As you were explaining that, I'm sitting here envisioning,
Yeah.
like,
Well, what's your Barbie?
what would mine be? And I totally get like the disconnect. Like you would have somebody who had the tiki bar, type brand, and, like somebody walked in on the beach with a suit on. Like that would just not happen.
Right.
Not even if they were the hotel manager, they would probably be in something that's a little more casual anyways. So there's that cohesiveness. Yeah. Like
and when
mine.
so tell me. Yeah.
I think mine would like what kind sort of came to mind was a place that's classy, but also that like, just like when you were saying, like the bartender like knows who you are.
Yeah.
You walk in, like you see some of the same faces like on a typical Friday night because you're going there to hang out a little more often. The bartender just like I like that. Like, hey, Laurie-Ann, I got this new wine in. Like it would definitely be like a wine for me that they would hand me. Yeah.
Right. No, and I love that. For me, like any member in my membership, any like one-on-one client, like I want to be friends with you. Like I am the bartender that's going to like hang out with you and like overshare and listen to your problems and like, maybe ignore some people coming in because we're here. Whereas some people, maybe when you think about like how you're interacting in your services and it's like, yeah, I'm not actually great on the one-to-one. Like I'd rather just like offer up a lot of tools that they can purchase or a course and I can kind of walk them through, but like maybe you're more of an introvert or something. And so it's a cocktail bar where they have a big menu that you can order from, but you're not really interacting too much with the bartender. You're just letting them do their thing. I mean, I think it's a fascinating, again, I love a good analogy, but I do think when you visualize in a real world situation, because sometimes our business just feels a little more abstract with the brand and you're trying to compete with all these different people and trying to figure out who you are. If you like grounded in something that you can relate to in a way, but has nothing to do with your business can kind of help.
Right. It's just sort of like sheds some light.
Yeah.
And gives you like, like here's the first step. Let's envision like what kind of bar you feel comfortable in and that you're going to hang out in. And from there, we come up with the speaker style or your branding style and your colors and fonts and content fillers. I love all of this. This has been a fascinating conversation. I know people are going to get a ton out of this. Please share where people can find you and go from there.
Yeah. So I'm most active on Instagram at District Brand Bar. I also have a really fun quiz that helps you discover your signature brand's marketing style. And so it's based on 4 cocktail styles. You're either on the rocks, shaken, stirred, or neat. And it gives you tips on how to market your brand based on your personality so you can feel really natural and authentic when you are marketing your personal brand or business. And you'll get lots of tips and tricks. So you can get that at marketingstylequiz.com. I'm sure there will be some in the show notes, but I would love to, and I would just love to connect with you guys. If you listen to this and you want to share what type of bar your brand would be, please come and DM me on Instagram because I would love to hear it.
Great. So go down below. You'll be able to find her where to find her on Instagram and head on over to, what was that quiz again?
Marketingstylequiz.com.
Marketingstylequiz.com. I know I'm going to head over there right after this. Kristin, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I don't know about you, but I had a blast having this conversation with Kristin. Hopefully you learned as much as I did, if not more. I mean, she makes branding so much fun and obviously so much more than just your logos and your colors. It is literally everything and how you make your customers and clients feel when they interact with your brand, that consistency. So again, if you want to reach out to Kristin so you can learn more about Kristin and follow her to continue learning from her. See you next week on And Be in Demand.